Hey, Dr. Vic, I am so happy that you are here with me today to sit down and talk about all things business. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and see where this conversation goes and so forth.
Absolutely. So we were talking just before I hit record and talking about how you were a pediatric chiropractor. And now you have really shifted gears so that you can take control of your life and you can really use your time in a way that suits you and your family's needs and desires. So I'm curious to know a little bit about what led to you shifting gears and what you've gotten out of that shift.
Love this. Yeah, I did everything, in the business world, as we were talking about before, the grind hustle mentality. That's 15 years now. This has been 15 years. I've been listening to business advice and self-help personal development, and it hasn't changed. It's like grind, hustle, less sleep, outperform, outcompete your competition, work harder than they do, work longer. And so the first 5 years of my career as a chiropractor running my own business, I did that. And guess what? I hit a financial peak. It was great. It worked. Yeah, I got me there. What came behind that, though, is burnout every 4 to 6 months, which was very disheartening for me because I was always in the mindset of is that when you're really passionate about something and you love what you do, burnout shouldn't exist. It's that you're tapping into inspiration. So it shouldn't be there. And so that was a point in my career where I was like, I don't understand. Like, okay, I'm trying everything. I'm thinking of everything. Why am I still ending up in burnout? This is not making sense. Unfulfilled, unsatisfied. I mean, if you talked to me in my first year of my career and I said, this is how much money I'd be making in my 5th year, I'd be sitting there going, holy cow, you know how much money I would have per month. And you know what I can do? There's multiple businesses I could start, all these things.
Right.
And I'd be excited about it. I think, oh my God, I had all my problems solved and be good to go. And that was not the case at all. So there came a point where I even thought about leaving the profession because I'm like, if this is how business is, the grind and hustle and always go uphill battles, I don't want to be in practice. I'll do something else.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I decided, no, let me do some soul seeking. And I started to make some changes in my career where I was like, you know what, how about if I just don't listen to what the business world's saying for a minute? How about if I just stop? I've been doing everything they've been telling me. I became prototypes of a lot of people that I was listening to. But what is it I really want? What really matters to me? And I started to shift gears and I started to define what a chiropractor was, what success means, all these different things. And I was like, well, why can't, there's a law called the law of least effort, which means what's the least amount of work to get the greatest gain possible, otherwise known as work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
Right.
Perfect.
And I'm like, why can't I create that? So I started to shift all my perspectives. I started going back into things I knew, like quantum physics, consciousness, neuroscience, all that fun stuff. And I started to apply this to my business where I'm like, I'm going to shift gears, go into pediatrics. I'm going to, instead of trying to do all the action steps that you're always told, like action, grind, hustle, work, I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to go to mindset and I'm going to focus on my vibration or my consciousness level and just see where my energy is and just manage that. And I'll let whatever inspired action come to me. I'll take action when it's needed. And it was a game changer. I went to work 50% less. I ended up making the same amount of money I was making before. And it totally transformed everything. From that moment, this is where I was like, this is where my whole coaching career started. I was like, man, I want to start coaching. I want to write a book. I want to start doing a podcast. So that's where that became. But the moment to make the shift from being a chiropractor, having a very successful practice, one of the largest pediatric offices in Illinois for patient volume and all these other things, it was one of the things where I was like, my reach and what I feel like I'm destined to do in life was not being met. I had great impact. I was, very involved in the community and all that, but I felt like when I looked at the totality of what I've been doing, it was very, very minutely small. And I don't come from an ego place when I'm explaining this. It's more of just like there was this burning desire that I felt like there was more of the masses I need to serve. I don't believe I need to serve billions and billions of people, but maybe even not even millions. But I feel like there was just something more I needed to do. And so it kept becoming a burning desire inside me. And I was like, even 4 years before I made this choice, I would have never thought myself of not practicing, but I wanted to eventually move out of Illinois And the first couple of years, my wife is like, maybe we'll think about it. Who knows? We have family here. All our family's here. We don't know anybody in Tennessee, because we were going to Knoxville, Tennessee a couple times a year to go to the Smoky Mountains. There's a beautiful lake here called Norris Lake, which is one of the cleanest lakes in the United States. It's gorgeous, right around the state park. I loved it. So we were just kind of keep coming back here. And then eventually COVID hit. My wife's like, okay, we can move. I see what you see now. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So that stimulated the transition to like make it happen. And then that's where, when we made the switch, December 2021, we moved to Tennessee, and that's where I decided to, I couldn't sell my practice, so I let it go. And I went full-time into coaching to really give myself that, not only because I had a vision to help serve at a higher level, but I knew we were going to start a family. And I had a father who had to make ends meet, and he worked multiple jobs, and mom worked multiple jobs. I come from a very blue collar family, financial scarcity. And I didn't really get to see my dad a lot. Like,
and you wanted to be home for your family.
I want to be there for my daughter. I want to see I have a daughter, and it's one of those things like, I want to see every moment, because I was being a pediatric chiropractor. I hear a lot of different things. So and I'm so thankful I went through that experience, 5-6 years of serving kids, because I heard so many different stories. I've heard, what parents complain about, what the regrets were, and all these different things. So what it did for me was kind of be like, okay, I know what I want to have, and I know what I don't want to be saying. And so, like, she's 7 months old. I haven't missed anything. Like, my wife may go, hey, did you notice this? And I'd be like, oh, let me see. Oh, yeah, that's what she was doing. Oh, my God, look at that now. And I haven't missed a beat. And so that has been the biggest thing for me. And it was something that I wanted more of. I wanted to have more flexibility in my schedule. I only work 3 days a week in my office, but it was 14.5-hour weeks is what I had towards the last couple of years in my office. But the key thing was I wanted to have the choice to do whenever I wanted to do at any time I wanted to, rather than being able to be held to do, I have to be at the office today for the whole pretty much half the day. I'm going to miss out. And then, I got things to do in between that time frame. So I don't really get a chance to hang out and so forth. So
now you're able to really, in this transition, you get to do even more good. I talk a lot about that passion to do more good, and it looks different in a lot of different ways and places. So you now get to do more good, and you are helping other people build businesses in a way that is more congruent with that being present. Right?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's really, helping individuals to really find what matters to them. What is that fulfillment? What it matters to you, right? And, I always just say, I'm going to help you not grind and hustle. You don't have to sacrifice your time away from your family. You'll make more, work less, and you'll be able to and do more things that you enjoy. Go out and travel more, spend more time with the family on the weekends, and really learn how to create more. I don't like to say work-life balance. That's a term that's used a lot, but it's more of like harmony is what I like to use, because nothing really is in balance. And I mean, some things you can say yes, but when you really look at life, it's constantly adapting. Right. So when you have a shift here, you got to adapt here, you got to move. That's kind of how I look at it. And that's why I like the word harmony. But it's that perspective of being able to do that and be able to step back and really know that you can choose, and not only just choose, but can experience. Because a lot of the stuff I teach is what I wish I was taught earlier, and what I've gone through and everything I coach, because I wish someone told me you can just choose and you can have it. I knew these from an intellectual concept. I studied this stuff. I knew that, but from going through the process and being guided through it and going through the lessons I need to learn to go through that, I had some coaches that helped me a little bit with that, but like the full on depth that I'm teaching, it was like, man, I wish I had that, because then I would be like, oh, wow, here's a little short, because I had to do it all on my own in the beginning. I tested it out here. When I made the shift in my practice, I hit my financial peak. I didn't mention this, but I took a 40% hit when I made that change, because my practice wasn't what I wanted it to be. And so I was letting go of patients and referring them out who didn't fit the model of what we were creating. Some people go, that's crazy, you took a 40%, but I knew that if I aligned my principles, because I was so tired of being burned out, that I was like, if I align my principles of what mattered to me, this will all come back. And within a year it did, which was really cool. Not that I had expectations of it happening in a year. I just was like, it's going to happen. I know it will eventually. Who knows? It could be 5 years down the road, but I didn't put a time on it. And it was a little over a year. All of a sudden, I remember we're looking at our monthly stats. I think it was like a quarterly stat we were looking at financially. And I go, man, we're right back to where we were. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, holy cow. And I'm like, and I'm working less and all these other things. I was like, man, I'm going again. This is so different than what you've been taught. So, yeah.
So you're telling me all of this, and I know for our listeners, they can't see you, but I can. And you are just relaxed and you're smiling. So what's the secret to creating that kind of growth in your coaching business, that you're doing now? But you mentioned you aligned your chiropractic business to what you really wanted at that time. What's the secret to being able to do that in a way that we don't have to hustle and grind all the time? There are going to be seasons of up and down, right? I mean, that's just life. But how do we get to that point where it's a relaxed approach that actually allows for the creativity, the growth, and all of the possibilities to flow into us?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. And I would say the first and foremost is what I teach all my clients right off the bat is vision. You got to choose a vision for yourself. Mm-hmm. You got to choose why you exist and what's your purpose. Like, why are you here on this earth? And that's not an easy question to answer. Some people are like, well, if they answer it, like if they respond quick to me, I'm like, no, we got to go deeper. And you really get crystal clear with that, because vision is everything. I mean, it's in different scriptures. It's in the Bible. It's in other religions. Ancient, I mean, 5,000 years ago, they talked about how important vision was. Mm-hmm. So vision is so critical to it all. The second thing, and this is something that I had to learn over time, and that is understanding, when you really understand the power that you really have. Like when we really get down to the basics, and quantum physics has proven all this stuff, where it's like, if you just focus on what you truly want to have and what you want to experience in your life, then in knowing that, having the faith. So imagine this. Imagine that 6 months from now, you're going to have $1 million in your bank account. Would you worry in those next 6 months of money being short, not making ends meet or anything like that?
No.
When you understand this game called life, and you understand that when you're choosing, I mean, it's going to come at eventually at some point in time, it will happen. But when you understand you have that power to make that choice, and eventually it's going to happen, that it's kind of like, another example to use is kind of like, I like using the example of Netflix. Okay. When you're going to go watch Netflix or Hulu or whatever app you may be using, you don't hit the power button on your TV to turn it on and go, please, I hope this turns on. Oh man, I just hope this remote, before you even do it, you're like, I hope it works. I just hope that this is not, please, God, whatever. I'm just hoping. No, you just hit the button, you turn it on, because intuitively it's going to happen. And then you go ahead and you choose the movie and all these other things. And you know that you got the Netflix, and you're picking, you could choose the genre, you're going to pick what you want. And you're not stressing about it. It's the same thing where it comes to, like, if you saw 5 cloudy days in a row, are you worrying that the sun doesn't exist anymore? No. So kind of the concepts I'm talking about is there's a little bit of abundance concepts in there, but that's also understanding and knowing that things are going to work out for you as long as you just stay focused in it. It's kind of like failure only happens when you quit. As long as you stay in the game, you're going to win. But it's having that faith. And this is something I wouldn't say I knew it early on, but when I kept testing these things out, first it was, starting my business. Then it was a couple other things. Then it was like, well, we have success. How about we change what we do? And let's see if we can redo the principles. Well, that worked. So we changed something else again. And then that worked. And now I did it again with my chiropractic, the coaching. And, I'm not where I want to be just yet with it, with where my vision is for coaching. I got ways to go with that. But at the same token, I just know that the proof's in the pudding in my past. If I look at my past and I say, well, everything always worked out the way it should. And it always worked out for the greater. It always worked out in the greater good for me. When I go look back, I see it. And so that kind of gives me reassurance. I'm not going to lie, though. I do get worried sometimes. I do get stressed. I do have.
I was going to ask about that.
Okay. You can talk to my wife. She'd be like, oh, no, sometimes he can be like, oh, he's not in a great place today. But the difference is Vic me now versus 10 years ago, when I was like that and stressing out and anxious and just didn't know. The only difference now is I still have it. But I have tools that I've used that I know that help me recenter. So when I do go in those dark places, or I start to get into that stinking thinking, or I'm thinking, oh, this is just how it's always going to be, or if I didn't get let's say I had 2 clients in a row didn't sign up with me, it's like, man, what happened here? Because my limiting beliefs will come back up. They love, my subconscious, those inner critics, they wait for stuff like that. And then when it happens, they know how I am and how I operate. So like, oh, look what happened here, buddy. Yep. You keep thinking this is going to happen, all that. We all have it.
We do.
But I have tools that can shut them up inside.
A little faster than they used to.
Exactly. Before it'd be like weeks, and now it's maybe a couple. It could be 30 minutes. It can be a couple of hours. I don't usually stem over through a day.
So how do you develop that toolbox? Because I think we all have those gremlins pop up, right? And they start saying, nope, see, this happened. It's going to happen again. Maybe you should stop. This is not going to work.
Right. Or like this, maybe you're not destined to do this.
Yes. Right? Maybe you misinterpreted your destiny. Maybe your vision's wrong. Maybe it's not right.
Yeah. I've been there before. Chiropractic, coaching, you name it. And it's one of those things where, again, coming back from my chiropractic background and understanding the brain, it's how do we balance that nervous system? Because when we have that inner critic coming, that's your sympathetic nervous system. That's I used to call it the gas pedal. It just revs everything up, and it takes your brain into that reptilian, that old primitive. You become like a primate. In other words, you're very or reptilian, more like a snake, but very just reactive and impulsive, and you're just freaking out and everything. And you lost the connection to the higher self of that brain, where you can stay more centered and calm and future planning and all these different things. So there's a gazillion tools that you can use, and I'll share a couple, but it's mainly mindfulness in many ways. The one I recommend a lot, and I used to recommend this a lot to my patients just because it's easier to do, even though it's not the one I choose the most, but it's just I'm trying to think of the people I'm working with, is breath work. And breath work is taking things by the storm. Wim Hof has gotten popular, and there's so many, but there's a gazillion of them out there. And I always tell people, like, it doesn't matter what you do, just do it, because breath work works. We know that there's a part of the brain, a cluster of neurons in the midbrain that is called the breath pacemaker. And what they do is they're actually literally paying attention to your respiratory rate. Yes. And this is how we can use breath to shift our autonomic nervous system and influence it in a way. And so like when I get into those states where I'm just not good, and sometimes I just had one last week or a few days ago, I was just not in a great place. And my wife's like, yeah, I'm sorry you're struggling with this. And there's reasons why this happens to me. This is why I love coaching and how I coach, because a lot of I always say your business problems are really your personal problems. And so like how you're raised and how you developed and how the subconscious was programmed, all these things, that's why you react the way you do. And it took me, even though I've been studying this stuff for so long and working on myself for so long, it was like last year I started realizing, I was like, man, the reason how I was raised and and I just started connecting dots, and I'm like, that's why I react the way I do. Anyway, I digressed here, but with all that, but the point I was trying to make is that, I'll do the breath work, and I do it for like 30 minutes straight. I'm and my whole body's vibrating. I'm in a whole different realm. And when I'm done, I'll listen to some really nice soft music, or maybe a mantra or something like that. And I'll journal. And I call this automatic writing. This is how I read all my books. And this is what I usually recommend to my clients. And I'll just write out things, and I just let my heart pour whatever's coming out. And once I feel empty, I'm done. I stop writing. And then I'll go and read it. And I've done this many times in my life. Still to this day, it always gives me the advice I need to hear. Where I'm at, or what I'm going through, or maybe what I need to learn, where this is coming from. But it's not like I'm thinking about it. It's just, I'll read this and I'm going, I wrote this. I'm like, wow, this is pretty fascinating. Is that really me? Like, it sounds like me somewhat, but where did that come from? Because my mind was not thinking. So and this is what I teach a lot of my clients, guiding them through these processes. Because guess what? We're going to have lean months. We're going to have ups and downs. Storms are going to come. They're going to go. This too shall pass, right? Tom Hanks was saying this. I love when I saw him saying this on, I don't even know where I saw it. It was on a reel. And he just said, like, this too shall pass. And everyone thinks of this from the bad times in life. But guess what? The good times, this too shall pass also. And I was like, that's gold, because we have to really appreciate both. And that's what makes life really exciting. I mean, as a soul, if I get a little spiritual here, that's what allows us as a soul to be like, yeah, this is exciting. You have the ups and the downs. This is fun. But our human side's like,
No
Can't we just
thanks.
go up?
I give you back the downs. I don't want them. Thank you. That's what we tend to do, right? So when you're thinking about how to build success and really build a business in a way that is not 24/7, 70 hours a week kind of deal, we've got vision, we've got really leaning into your personal power and learning to let go of those limiting beliefs and to tame the gremlins that pop up when the lows happen and they try and convince us it's going to keep happening. We got to get rid of them sooner. We got to say, no, just go back in the closet for a little while. I don't need you right now. What else can we do? That's a lot already. Oh my gosh.
That's a lot. And there's even more, because here's the thing. Like, I have a formula that I call the Billionaire Success Formula. And some people ask me, like, does that formula, does it make you a billionaire? I'm like, well, the reason why it's named that is because billionaires use this. Like, this is me studying billionaires and 15 years of everything I've went through. And there's two components. So every day you have a choice. You have a choice you have 50 to 70,000 thoughts on average that run through your mind that you're going to have go through. You have a choice to choose thoughts that align with your vision and your purpose in life and what you want to experience. And you have a choice that you go pay attention to thoughts that do the opposite. That is the vibe component. That's one part of it. There's the emotional side to it, how we react. I think in today's society, and I'm no different than this, I've done this so many times myself, where we compare where other people are and then we judge ourselves for it. And I'm notorious for this. But it's one of those things where I've gotten better over the years, but it's one of those things that how we view things is what matters. Like I say, like, life has no meaning unless you put whatever meaning you put on it. So if you're like, hey, I'm a year out, or I'm 2 years out, or I'm 5 years out, and I'm still trying to figure these things out. I'm still trying to master this to really get that growth. If you just keep that framework in mind, you're golden. But there's some people, and I know I've done this to myself, where it's like, okay, I've been going at this for a year. I hear so many stories of people blowing up in the first year and getting to, 6 figures and all these other things. And I'm like, why is that not happening? What's wrong with me? Right. And the key factor is, again, it's again, not about what happens to us or what it is, but how we view that. And so keeping that in check to keep it aligned to where you're going. Stop. And I said, this is advice I tell myself all the time. Like, stop judging where you are now. Just judge where you're going. Right. Just judge where you want to go. Don't judge here. Like, let's go critique the future, and let's keep fine tuning that to make it better than me judging where I'm at the moment. And because what that does is, everything in life is energy at the end of the day. Quantum physics has proven this. We can call it consciousness levels of frequency. You can call it tone, whatever you want. Even quanta, that's what quantum physics calls it. But it's an energy that all things in the physical world tie into this non-physical world that we call quantum. And so all the physical representations of what we see are just a shift in energy. Gold and lead, from a molecular standpoint, are different. Right. From an energy standpoint, they are different. But when you just shift that energy around, it changes the physical. The same thing is from being successful to not being successful. The difference between those two individuals are the energy that they're vibrating at. Successful, athletes, we say the one who wins the game is never the most talented. It can be, but it's the ones that have the most heart, which is going to come back to energy. And that's the one who will, any game that is. So these components and that's a huge component. So it's your thoughts, it's your emotions, but it's where also you're focusing. That's why I use vision so much, because if I can keep you focusing on that future self or who you want to become, the stuff here in the right now, in the present, it's not going to affect you that much, because you know that, like, no, this is where I'm going. This is what my life's going to be. I believe that to be true, regardless what's showing up, regardless, because this is my past, right? Everything from your past to today, that's your karma. Your karma is all it is just the actions and choices you made in your past, which leads you to today. But you, from this moment on, can make the change. It's just, we're not in the spiritual realm where everything happens like that instantaneously. We have to go through space and time. So that's where the energy component comes in. And I always tell my clients, if I can get you just to focus on that energy of who that future self is, whether they be, how do they think, how do they move, every sense you can possibly activate. You are, and then just hone in on that as much as you possibly can. You continually raise that vibe. And what you're doing is you're telling your mind, which can't tell the difference between what's happening in your life right now Whether if you have negative $500 in your
Yep.
bank account or you're managing $1 million, both realities exist. Your mind doesn't know the difference. So
Right.
why don't you just choose the one that is going to favor what you want? And if you can set the tone for that, eventually the mind's going to start to go, okay, you've showed this enough, subconscious, you're getting it in there. And all of a sudden it's like, now we're going to prove that to you. We're going to start to put that into your awareness so you can start to see that and become aware. And once that starts to happen, now all of a sudden we shifted all that energy and focus to what it is you want to create. And this is where quantum leaps happen. I've had it in my life multitudes of times. And I've had it a lot with clients where, 5 months in or 7 months in, I always tell them, don't get hooked. I've had one where it was within the first one phone call, 33 days later, the client jumps up 138% in profits. And she's just like, how the heck? I mean, there was beginning of there was systems in place already. It was more of just working on the mindset to see things differently. And from there, it just opened up a whole door. But, so it's one of those things. I like to be as thorough and transparent as I can. Like, yeah, it's great she had that, but there was things in place to allow that to happen.
She needed that tweak, which was big, but it was little because she had all of the other stuff kind of in place and just needed that other piece of it to get dialed in. I tell people all the time that if you start comparing yourself with others, you're comparing your backstage to their front stage. It is not apples to apples. You cannot do that. And all it does, it keeps you grounded in right now instead of looking forward to the future and what can be and what will be. And if we get stuck there, we are not going to get to that vision of what we want. We have to keep projecting forward.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Dr. Vic, thank you so much. You have provided so many amazing details and things to think about, including having that vision to ground your business and to also help it grow and not be grounded, right? To be absolutely to a point where it can grow and expand and you can do even more good in the world. You can live up to the potential that you have and you want to fulfill, and taking over your personal power, knowing that you can control your thoughts. And if they get out of your control, you have the tools in your toolbox to manage that and manage it faster, not just waiting until it snowballs out of control, but nabbing it in a few hours or a few minutes instead of a few weeks or months. Right. And then really taking the opportunity to make a choice. I think that's just such a powerful reminder that we can choose where we go and what we do and what we accomplish in our lives and in our jobs, in our businesses as entrepreneurs. We get to choose that. No one else gets to choose that for us.
No, it's so true. I mean, I remember I had a coach tell me one time, she's like, the beauty about being an entrepreneur is even like you get to choose how much you want to make. And I remember when she was first telling me this years ago, and I was like, all right, I'm going to challenge that. All right, let's do this. I want to double next year. And she's like, okay, so there's going to be work you have to do and blah, 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 blah. And then, when I started to play around with this and I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel like I got this figured out. Of course, when I wanted the double, I did it. And I was like, I had like a 15% growth, which some people say that's really great, but I was like, no, I need more growth to support where I'm at. And then I finally was like, no, I think I understand this now. And then I got really crystal clear how I wanted to grow. I was opening up a new office. I told my accountant how much my rent was going to be. And she looks and she goes, no, I hope you didn't sign the lease. I was like, oh, this has already been done. We're in build out. And she's like, I would never advise this. So I'm like, great. Here I am going all in on this new space. And she's telling me no. And I was like, no way, we're going to double. She's like, I've seen your numbers. I've seen you grow. But she's like, yeah, you've been in the business now for 3 years. That's like, that doesn't continually happen. We hit 89% that next year in growth. And then we hit 49% the next year after that. And I was like, but that's again, coming back to choice, right? In all the stuff I was sharing, I chose that. I was like, no, this is how much I want to make at the end of the year. This is what I want to have in my bank account. And I'm not going to say, oh, it was identical to that. No, some was higher and some was lower, but at the end we hit 89% growth. I was like, this is awesome. Until I got the tax bill that we weren't prepared for. And I was like, right. There goes my bank account shrinking that I thought I had all that in there. But anyhow, I digress.
So we just scratched the surface today. I mean, I don't think we even scratched. Maybe we have a tiny little nick in the surface of everything that you all of the wisdom and insights that you have to share. So how can we connect with you after the podcast is over?
The easiest way is my hub is my website. It's empoweryourreality.com. You can get access to my podcast, books. You can connect with me on social media there. If some of the stuff I resonated with you and you're like, man, I'd love to possibly, do coaching or something. I do a free clarity call where I get to know a lot about you and what you do. And then if two things, I'm looking to see if I can help and if we're a good fit. And if we are, I'll share what my coaching is and so forth.
Okay. Great. I will put that link to your website in the show notes so that you can just go click and make it easy peasy and connect with Dr. Vic and learn more about what he has to offer entrepreneurs who are growing their business, scaling their business, and just really looking to live into that vision of their life. So thank you so much for your time today. I cannot wait to connect with you again in the future.
No, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.